Alright, everybody. Hope the video started by now. My bad. I was checking my notes real quick. Anyways, this is my favorite weight class, so I'm going to start it with the all-time list of bantamweight first. I'm not going to do these top fives in order of weight just because I don't know, makes it boring. I want to do my favorites. So 185 would probably be next. But anyways, top five UFC bantamweights. I'm doing these ranking videos. I don't think they'll change too much, but I will just go ahead and make them. Normally, I don't like doing these ranking type videos because usually my opinions change and develop over time, but I don't think these top fives will. Maybe my all time. I might never do an all time go though. Anyways, yapping too much. I just want to get a quick disclaimer out of the way. I will be counting WEC into this because a lot of WEC alumni made it to the UFC and were pretty successful, proved their mettle. I will count WEC title defenses into the equation under the right context. Like Miguel Torres. I think he's a couple. Like there are some champions that have defenses in WEC, but I'm not like Mike Brown in 145. I'm not counting him as a UFC champion title defense. But I want to address the WEC elephant just out of the way real quick. Anyways, number five, now Piotr Jan. It might be a glaze because I do like him a lot. Might be a glaze, but I think it's a fair glaze. Obviously the skills. I don't want to have too much about skill because it's quite subjective, and we obviously know last year's amateur boxing career, great wrestling, fight IQ, former champ, undisputed interim, all that. Now some of the records: he's second in knockdowns, fifth in significant and total strikes. That's pretty solid. Another cons, obviously the five losses, especially the Marab one was pretty bad, but I mean he did avenge one of his losses. So, in my opinion, I think well, the sugar one also, I think it's 2-1 for me for Piotr Jan, so I would count it as 3. But it's up to you. That one's a little more subjective. I know we're trying to stay on paper, but I think the real issue with him is winning the fight 30-27 and then losing the belt via DQ. It's hard to say, yeah, this guy, because he lost his belt in his first title defense. He has 0 title defenses. But like Barao, for example, is another guy who could be on here, has 2 title defenses as an interim and 1 is undisputed. So I don't know. Pretty solid, but I want to just get into the resumes or the wins. Here's the keyword: resume. I don't care how good your competition are if you just lost a lot. I know it's a hot take, but I care about. I feel like you're only as good as your wins are. That's just my thoughts. But anyways, I could be crazy. Let's get into it. Barao lost to Dillashaw twice, so that's taking a hit in my opinion. Now for the resume of Jan, Jose Aldo, former champion, Figgy, former champion. You got wins over solid contenders in Sanhagen, Dotson, and Udong. Especially if you view O'Malley as a win, you could say he has wins over 3 champions. That's pretty solid. Whereas Henan Barrow's best wins are Uriah Faber twice, Eddie Wineland, Scott Jorgensen, Brad Pickett, and Chris Carousel. So I think if you look at it, really analyze it. I know Hannibal won all those fights in a row and has all those like 38 wins or whatever, but I think it's pretty clear his strength of competition was worse than Piotr Jan, and Piotr Jan has better all-time wins. Now, I think generally I would value title defenses over resume, but to me, Jan's resume is just too good. I mean, he's beaten everybody. He's the who's who. He's beaten them. And I think if he rematches Merab and beats him, I think he would very easily, without a doubt, pass Henan Barao just because his resume would get even better. And maybe he gets shafted into a Cejudo matchup, doesn't get the title shot, and beats Cejudo. That's also very solid to add to the resume. Now, I hate Merab. I'm going to be fair. I'm not a fan of this guy. I can see the appeal, I guess, but I'm not a fan. But I can't deny what he's done on paper. I know the highlights are boring. I know he's not super dominant, all that, but let's just get into it. He has the most strikes and takedowns landed and the longest win streak. I mean, he's 4 wins away from tying the record, and he's not even close to finish in terms of his career, which is pretty crazy. His resume of wins is absurd. Piotr Jan, Jose Aldo, Sean O'Malley, Triple C, Marlon Moraes, John Dodson. That's pretty good. Obviously, he's a champion, but a very new one, so we can't really say much. Now, 4 losses, none of them were revenge, but I feel like Ricky Simeone, especially when it's your second fight in the UFC, isn't a horrible loss, so I can kind of get that one a pass. We'll call it 3.5, but this is the real con, man. It's the fighting style. Anyway, you splice it. Merab is just not dominant. He beats you with failed takedowns, stalling, love taps, and knees to the thigh. And really, it's just having more cardio than your opponent isn't really dominant. But still, his resume on paper is absurd. I feel like people try to discredit him because of his style, but we can't argue with what he's done. His body of work is absurd. You can call the Aldo fight a robbery, sure, but he still has Piotr Jan, Sean O'Malley, Triple C, Marlon Moraes, and John Dodson on his resume of wins, so that's pretty solid. Now, I also think recency bias might be playing into it. I'll be fair, because it's like kind of not a hype train because I don't like him, but there could be a little recency bias there. But it's pretty much undeniable. His method of winning is horrible, but the results are also undeniable. Number 3, hello, Eljo. Not the fan of you, Aljo. But anyways, Aljo's a good wrestler, I guess. Strong dude, good cardio. Kind of like Murad, but he did submit a guy once, so that's pretty cool, I guess. Aljo was a champion with 3 title defenses in a row, which is the record for most title defenses in a row, whatever. Tied for second most, tied for most wins, including WEC. Amassing a total of 14 wins. He also has 4 title fight wins, which is pretty second all time. Now the cons, 4 losses, none of which were avenged. We know the drill. I'm not trying to dwell on these losses. Everyone loses, but the real con is he's kind of a one-dimensional backpacking split decision merchant. I mean, the dude wasn't really dominant or like an imposing force. I'm kind of noticing a theme here with the Cerro Longo gym, but I'm not going to try to delve into it too much. I'm trying to keep the hate into a minimum. This is supposed to be praising them. But another big thing is the method of gaining and then losing your belt. It's like the beginning of your reign, end of the reign. I mean, you gained it via BQ or DQ after kicking on the balls twice and just being a total jerk, butt scooting around and laying on the floor. Like, he deserved the knee, to be fair. You're a good dude, Aljo, but you were just being a jerk that fight. You deserve something. Maybe not a knee to the head, but maybe like a little eye poke or something. But you were being a jerk, to be fair, just to play, into argument's sake. But now, the way losing a belt, was it round 2, knockout, maybe round 1? I don't really remember the fight vividly. I don't really care. It's just you got knocked out pretty brutally in the middle of your reign, so I definitely changed our perception of you. I think Aldo's a strange one. I think he's stranger than Marab, because at least we kind of know Marab is just a cardio merchant, but at least Aljo was, like, kind of good, Like, he did submit Corey Sandhagen pretty easily, and he did have some flashes of something, but overall, not really. We can't deny it, man. It's just a weird era. I think 3 is appropriate given how weird he was in terms of his style and dominance, but 2 could easily be argued, but I'm not trying to argue with it. Now, the notable wins we got are a kind of washed up 2 years off Henry Cejudo, Petr Yan twice, Corey Sandhagen, I guess Henenbrow, but I don't want to talk about that one because he was older. Pedro Munoz, pretty solid, and then a one-arm TJ Dillashaw. Now, this is a new rule I'm instating in my all-time list. It's probably the GOAT list as well, but just in general, if you failed a PED test, I don't care really the circumstances, because it puts your whole career into question. You cannot be the GOAT of your weight class. Either way, I think for me, he's 2. But I'm a big TJ Dillashaw fan, even if he failed the PED test, man. Where do I begin? Phenomenal striker, good kicks, clean boxing, high-level grappling, dog mentality, crazy IQ, and a little bit of psychosis. Work ethic all mixed in there. 2-time UFC champion, 3 title defenses, second most TKO/KO wins, second most title fight wins with 4. Now the 5 losses, I don't think Dominic Cruz is a bad one. He avenged the Rafael Escanso loss. Again, the real thing that takes him out of the GOAT is the EPO test, man. I know it's for the cut to flyweight, but still, there were some rumors and stuff, and he did have crazy gyno. Let's be real, his gyno was kind of absurd. Just go look at the pictures of him after he beat Cody. Pecs don't look like that naturally. I think, though, he was 2 either way. We'll get into why, but yeah, let's get into it. I guess the thing is he lost to Aljo. You can't tell I'm a little bit scatterbrained. I'm trying to do a lot right now, but I don't think that should really be credited against him because number one, let's put it in full context here. So he had a 3-year layoff, total, right? Took 2 years off, fought Sanking, tore his ACL, took a year off. Then he went to a close split decision with an injury, which was the Corey Sandhagen fight. He was just banged up, man. He was way past his prime. Aljo was in his prime. Dillashaw was way past his prime. I don't understand why that fight was made. I get it. He got a win over a top contender, yada, yada, yada. They wanted to get him back for something, but it just doesn't look right in the full context on Aljo's resume. On paper, it looks great. I know the UFC does a lot of it, but in a video like this, it's not really good. I think Dillashaw's resume is kind of underrated. It's pretty crazy. Cody Garbrandt, twice, knockouts. Henenbrow, knockouts twice. Rafael Escanso. I know the controversial split decision over Corey Sandhagen, man. I had it 3-2 Sandhagen, to be fair, but a lot of people say he won the fight. I've heard a lot of takes won that fight. So I got to rewatch it, but it is a win on paper, and that's kind of what we are functioning off today. Anyways, the GOAT, pretty obvious. Dominic Cruz. I know there's a subsect of people that saying he's in the GOAT. Whatever. You can believe what you want to believe, but for me, it's pretty obvious. I think also he's top 6, top 7 all time. But again, you can believe what you want. Great fighter, obviously. Footwork, boxing, movement, all that, yada yada. I think his kickboxing was very underrated, and wrestling also as well. Now, WEC champion, I believe 2-time UFC champion. Right? He inaugural counts for WEC, so he's 3-time champion. 5 title defenses the most, 3 in the UFC. Tied for most wins in the weight class, 14 if you include WEC. Now, his losses aren't really horrendous given the context. He was kind of washed up and chinny against Cheeto. I mean, go watch the Munoz fight when he gets chinned round 1 badly. But I don't know. Cejudo, I think, also isn't terrible because Cejudo was a force to be reckoned with at the time. I know it was kind of an early stoppage, but still, Cejudo was good, man. And then Cody was just built on allowed to beat him, man. And then Favor he avenged, obviously. But now with Cruz, it really, I think, depends what you value. I include WEC. I think because a lot of the WEC guys graduated to the UFC, and he also won the belt back twice in the UFC. I think he proved that he was metal enough to be a UFC champion. I know 7-3 record isn't really a crazy body of work in the UFC, and we're trying to stick to the UFC, but I think we have to give him the pass because the whole WEC, all that jazz. I think he proved once again that he was one of the best 135ers on the planet over and over and over again. So I think we can give him the pass if he has a 7-3 record. I think it's kind of like Anderson Silva, where it's like he is the greatest of all time. He's a pioneer, but he kind of stuck around too long, got clipped, got injured, all that. Now, honestly, I think if he just retired before Garbrandt or even after Garbrandt, we would view him a lot differently. I think he has one of the firmest claims to being the GOAT in his weight class. I think it's pretty hard to argue. I said you could, but I don't want to be prideful and mean here. I know my last video is fighters I don't like, but I'm a changed man. That was recorded, I think, previously. You know, I think this narrative that he's been fighting flyweights, plumbers, bums, all that stuff just has to end, man. Like, he fought the best of the best at the time. He proved his mettle continually over and over and over again. I don't think his strength of competition is to be questioned. Beat Uriah Faber twice, Benavidez, TJ Dillashaw, Pedro Munoz, Scott Jorgensen, and Mighty Mouse. I know it doesn't really count for much given DJ was young and still had to figure things out, but I still wanted to bring it up, you know? But, yeah, that's all. I know a little more scatterbrained than usual, but thanks for watching and God bless. Middleweight next.